Thanks for tuning in to Kentucky Running, brought to you by John's Run Walk Shop in Lexington. I'm your host, Matt Reno. Earlier this summer, John's partnered with the University of Kentucky Kinesiology and Health Promotion Department to put on 2 all-comers track meets at Asbury University in Wilmore. The events were sponsored by ASICS, so shout out to them for all their support, and it was a huge success. Over 150 people of all ages, from preschoolers all the way to age 76. We had participants from all across central Kentucky, but most of them, almost 100, were from Fayette County. Why do I bring this up? Because Fayette County does not offer public access to a track, despite the clear demand for it. Weird, right? But that's what we're going to get into on this episode. I'm going to sit down with my coworkers, John's Run Walk Shop General Manager Riley Marshall and our running shoe buyer, Kellen Ague-Nealand. We're going to discuss why track access is important to a community and what we can do to help bring it to Lexington. All right, Riley, Kellen, let's talk track. What were your impressions of the all-comers track meets earlier this summer?
We had a blast. It was a major success for us. I had not gone through a all-comers meet in a long time, and my only experience of it was when I was back living in Oregon. So bringing it to Kentucky, getting a chance to be out on a track with the local community, seeing how much fun everyone had for a first go around with an all-comers meet, it was a great time, a lot of success.
It was really, really cool seeing that amount of people out there interested in track from the local community. We had kids as young as 3, 4, 5 running, all the way up to full-grown adults. Their parents were running with them. Families were running relays together. People that had never been on a track before out there, their first time, just out there to have some fun, learn about what track and field is. It was really, really successful and fun.
Kellen, you mentioned growing up in Oregon. You're from Eugene, correct? And that's known as Tracktown, USA. So tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up where track is such a huge part of the community.
Yeah, so Eugene is known as Tracktown, USA. One of the things I took for granted, I think, growing up in Eugene was not just the amount of community involvement for major track and field meets, national championships, the NCAAs, Diamond League meet with the Prefontaine Classic, all of that going on. But what feeds into that was I grew up in a city where access to a track, your local high school track, our entire district provided those to the community. So wherever you live in the Eugene and Springfield area, which is the sister city for Eugene, the local community is welcome to just go down to your neighborhood track and you can run there, but it's also a place for just general health and wellness within the community. So you see people, yes, like kids are trying to run the fastest 50-meter, 100-meter dash they can, but you have different people, different level of athletes, people doing their daily walks out there, just gathering as friends, having that kind of access to a track that ties into having an all-comers meet in the summer where people can kind of gather and compete for track and field. It's just a general part of the day-to-day life for not just people in Eugene, Springfield, but probably other parts of the country who have public access to a track.
And in addition to fitness, it also plays into public safety, too. People don't always have to walk just out where cars are. They're in an enclosed area if they want to get their miles in and just not think about crossing the street, dealing with traffic and whatnot, right?
Yeah, like one of the benefits when you talk about running and one of the major selling points as a form of fitness is how accessible it is. Unlike a lot of other athletic lifestyles, there are so few barriers to entry with running. And I think the general perception with track is that it only belongs to a competitive field. It only belongs to sort of well-trained athletes. It's not associated with general health and wellness here in Lexington, where, to your point, if people wanted to, there's a safe place you could gather, you could set your things down, park with your friends, and walk around your track, as opposed to going to a mall. More or less, I think, trying to open up the community to track in the way that an all-comers can do, I think we're also, in my mind, trying to tie in the idea that it's part of a community involvement, health and wellness for every age group, whether you're sprinting down 50 meters, but you also, for people who want to just get out on the track and be healthy and get in their daily steps, their daily miles, it should also be a venue for them.
When we called it the all-comers meet, it really was all-comers. It doesn't matter if you were experienced with track or if you've never done it before. Everyone was welcome to participate. Let's talk a little bit about the beginnings of this all-comers series. How did the idea come about?
So a customer named Hildy is actually from or was living in Eugene. And I think I noticed that she had a University of Oregon article of clothing that she was familiar with Eugene. And of course, I brought it up with her being where I was born and raised. And that just got us talking. She remembered the all-comers that had been going on in Eugene. Now, just a little bit of history, that goes back to the middle of the 20th century. Bill Bowerman was one of the things, he's famous for being a coach at the University of Oregon. One of the things that you may not know, he was also one of the principal players in getting all-comers meets established within Lane County, which is where Eugene and Springfield are situated. So we got to talking about this, and it was something that she felt was missing from the Lexington region. Yes, University of Oregon is famous for track and field, but University of Kentucky has one of the best track and field programs in the country. The gap between the University of Kentucky and the community at large regarding running, track and field, access to the sport, its visibility, the biggest thing that we saw was missing was how track was completely separate from the community at large. There was no way for, if you're a young athlete, to get out and sort of touch and feel, to get on a track, to participate in a sport that the University of Kentucky is relatively dominant in. We just saw that was a discrepancy. There's no reason, if we're able to pull this off in Eugene, that we can't have it here in Lexington.
Riley, you've been working at John's for many years now. What have you heard from the community about the need for public track access?
Well, we get a call about once a week asking us where someone can run publicly on a track. Answer is currently nowhere, unless you're with a group that maybe has rented some sort of access or something along those lines where there's kind of limited access, which is very, very unusual for most people, especially visitors coming into town are particularly surprised that we have no public track access. Towns Lexington size normally have about 5 tracks with some sort of access to the public, and obviously we don't have that. So every time we get that call, our answer is sorry.
And Riley, what do you see as some of the benefits of having track access to a thriving community?
Accessibility is the number one thing for track. You can have people that maybe have some mobility issues that can't walk on uneven sidewalks, go to a track and feel much, much safer walking there, especially with older adults who have joint pain. If you're on a softer track, you can continue moving into those older years in a way that you can't when you're trying to walk on the sidewalk or walk somewhere where you don't have that kind of cushion that your body needs.
Great points.
Also, from an accessibility standpoint, running is very, very cheap. You don't have to have a lot of equipment to do that. It's a very accessible sport for people that may not be able to play other things where you need a bat, a ball, headgear, everything like that. It's one of the most natural sports that we have as a society. Is you are a little kid and the first thing you do is you learn how to run before you learn how to play any other sport, which means that track is something that's very natural and very accessible. So providing resources as simple as a track can go a really, really long way towards getting kids moving, keeping kids moving into adulthood.
And feedback from the 2 meets we had at Asbury University were positive across the board. We surveyed participants afterward, and they all said they would come to an event like this again. They also all said they would use tracks in Fayette County if they could. Here's a couple comments we received after the meets. Some people said that this was a great thing for seniors. Other people said it was great for kids. One person said, I want my kids to see me trying and sometimes failing at new things. Also, my daughter has shown an interest in running, and this felt like a great way for her to try out track. We also had some excellent feedback from a coach of a nonprofit track club who brought kids from all different ages. And she said, club teams do not have access to or privileges that county athletes have during the school year. My club is a nonprofit organization and doesn't have sponsorships to pay for track use. We can't afford to pay for rental space. I wish Lexington had a partnership like other cities in Kentucky. For example, Louisville has modeled this quite well with their clubs and local tracks. Those were just some of the comments we got. We also have some audio recorded during the meets from people with two different perspectives on track and field. Here's Tiffany Baker, who participated in her first ever track event at the All-Comers Meet.
I'm Tiffany Baker, and I'm from Nicholasville. I started running in my mid-30s. Been running about 15 years, something like that. But I've never had a track meet before, so this is all completely new and beginner to that, even though I have lots of road experience with everything from 3K to a marathon. This feels a little odd and uncomfortable just being new, so it was. I was a little nervous to come out, but I would encourage anyone to come and get started and give it a try, because if you come out, you set your beginning pace, and you only have room to grow. So it was fun to see all the people and figure out what it's kind of like. I was a little bit nervous, but there's always people to help. It's a fun event. I tried them all. It's really hot. They might not be the best times ever. I finished last on a lot of them, and I don't regret coming. So I would recommend anyone come do it.
So Tiffany is proof that even if you weren't on your high school team, it's never too late to experience the fun of track. Now, let's hear from Terry Foodie, who's loved track for many years now.
Hi, I'm Terry Foodie from Lexington, Kentucky, at the beautiful Asbury University's brand new track. I did not run track in high school. There was no sports for girls. I'm pre-Title IX. I was mad. I wanted to play basketball. I ran around the block by myself and never got to compete. The first time I was ever really on the track and competing was in 2000 at the Bluegrass State Games. Eventually, we started having a group workout there on Wednesday nights, Bluegrass runners and other stuff. But people would come from all over to use that track. And the apartments that were nearby, families would come at night and walk around, and they could get in there on the weekends and practice then. It really enlarged on my abilities and my love and confidence to do track meets, because we had that open track there. As my friend and coach, Reb Hagan, would say, it's a land-grant university. This property should be open to the public. We could also do, in the Nutter Center, we could do workouts in the winter. That stopped. And then the track stopped when they built the new one. Bluegrass runners and other groups too have been going out of town, Georgetown, Woodford County. But as you can see from tonight, as you can hear from behind me, the age groups, the friends, people want to do this, and it would be wonderful if we could do it at one of the tracks in Lexington, or have one available for us. For me, I've gone on to do national competitions. I know women in my age group. It has given me such a sense of self. I love being fit, and I think every woman, every man needs a strong physical presence. Running, walking, track, races, they will give that to you.
Okay, now that we've heard some feedback from people who participated in the All-Comers Meets, what are your impressions of the things people have been saying?
It's exciting. It's exciting to see the passion that we have for track and field mirrored in our local community. Growing up, we were able to get on UK's track. It's where I first learned how to run track, providing that opportunity for people that were my age when I first learned how to start running is a really meaningful thing for me.
Yeah, so two things there. One, the family environment aspect of that. I really want to emphasize how family-friendly this event is. Someone who's never seen an all-comers event, it's not going to look like high school or collegiate. Definitely it's not going to be the Olympics, right? But the amount of people who are present there and helping, running with their children who potentially are afraid to jump in the race for the first time, that kind of family atmosphere is something that is rare to get in sports. And the fact that they're, once again, like we talked about previously, this is a place for people to learn, to experience competition in a way that's totally unique. And one of the most important things about running is just how easily and accessible it is to everyone. The other part of that stands out is if Louisville can make this happen, like why can't Lexington? Why don't we have this here in Lexington? The community here definitely deserves it, and we want to be a part in growing that.
And Kellen, that's the question I was just about to ask. Why don't we have track access as a place like Louisville does? Do you guys have any idea why this isn't happening?
We don't really know. We've heard a lot of answers like They want to make sure their tracks don't get destroyed, which is an odd response to me when we have tracks all over the United States with public access that aren't being destroyed. We've heard that it's a liability that people who manage track access in Lexington don't want to take on. That's something we're currently exploring, is looking into how we could buy insurance for that kind of liability and hopefully mitigate that as a response.
I cannot think of a good reason that is unique to Lexington that other parts of the country don't deal with and are still able to pull this off. So while I would love to be able to, work this out and listen to it, I do feel like we're primarily here as advocacy for this, but I can't think of what's holding this back.
And look, the point of this episode is not to make our city government to be the villains here, because conversations that we've had with city council members, they seem to have an openness to exploring, at least the people we've talked to. It's not like this is something that can't happen. They need to know what the demand for it is.
Yeah, and that was one of the exact goals of these track meets, right? Is we need to be able to show that people are indeed interested in this kind of activity. That seems to be a big hurdle right now, is we have nothing other than our word that we're getting a call once a week asking for track access, right? And this kind of activity, this kind of event is going to allow us to show that we can get 200 people out on a track on a random Tuesday in the middle of the summer when it's very hot. Think about who we could get out on a track if the weather was great, if it was a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning when lots of people are available. That's what we're starting to try to show with these kind of events, is that there is interest.
So clearly the people who showed up to the 2 track meets that we put on, they've contributed to building some of the awareness of the need for track. What else can listeners do to help move this forward?
So the next round of planning for the Parks and Recreation Department always starts with surveying the community for need and things like that. The number one thing that we can do as runners, as walkers, as movers in Lexington is to make sure that our voice is heard and weigh in on those surveys and use words like public track access so that the city knows this is something that we value. It's something very different than a hiking trail or a walking path. It is a track, which is a different kind of need. And making sure we've voiced that anytime the city is putting out surveys is very, very important, because that is what they build master plans off of.
We're moving in the right direction. I'm hopeful, and this isn't going to be the last time we talk about this topic on the show. So please, if you're interested in public track access, yes, reach out to the city, share this episode, write to us, and we can share your thoughts as well. Email us, info@johnsrunwalkshop.com. Tell us why you want public track access. We'll just keep doing what we're doing and even more of it to make this happen. Guys, thank you very much for your thoughts, and look forward to continuing to address this issue in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for listening. I hope this episode turns into a conversation starter that inspires people in Lexington to take action. Whether you want to practice speed work or just have another safe option for people of all ages to run and walk, public track access is a great thing for any community to have. Hopefully, we'll see that in Fayette County one day, but that means we all have to make our voices heard. I'm sure this won't be the last time we address this topic on Kentucky Running, so make sure you're subscribed so that you get future episodes. And please share this with someone else you think might be interested in making public track access a reality. Until then, I'm Matt Reno, and we'll talk again soon on Kentucky Running.